So I'm here with Colette with her lovely yin yang mug, and I love it. It's beautiful. So where are you joining us from today?
I'm currently in the suburbs of Chicago.
Ooh, has the weather got better? Is it summer?
Yeah, so it just got better a few days ago, and I know we get made fun of for our weather here,
Mhm.
but it's all worth it once the spring and the summer comes in. You
Beautiful.
cannot top a Chicago summer. It's incredible here.
Can you imagine? So tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're a divine feminine twin flame, currently working on her inner work in separation. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background or about when you met your twin? What do you want to share with us today?
Sure. So I met the DM, my DM, in actually, I met him it was very late 2005 going into 2006. We met online and we met online twice. And I've learned that this can be very common where you meet them in a different setting and then you meet them again. So the first time we met, he was supposed to meet up with my band to audition for it. And here's the thing, my band rehearsed on Union Street. That was the name of the street that we
Mhm.
rehearsed on. That you can't make it up, right? He didn't show up for the audition, but that's okay because that happens all the time. A year later, we met online again, but more in a dating sense. And that was in very, it was in 2006. Um, And it was like from the day we met, it was on. Like and neither one of us were looking for a relationship. We didn't want anything serious because we were both looking to be rock stars. Uh, so we just kind of wanted to like meet up and have fun. But from day one, people were really drawn to us. And, they'd be like, so are you a couple? And people would just approach us off the street. And there was something about our energy that people had to
Energy,
comment on it all the time.
energy,
Yeah.
and it gets more and more.
And
So,
so our bubble love phase lasted. I feel lucky because I know a lot of people say their bubble love phase was like 3 weeks. Ours was close to 6 months.
oh wow, that's a long
Yeah.
time. Mine was about 2 months, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then what? So
And
you met, let's talk about like how it was. How did you know it was a twin flame? What was different about this man? So you chatted online, you met in person. Was it unicorns and rainbows? Was there flutes, harps playing, cherubs? What was going on?
so I didn't figure out it was a twin flame until 2023. But at the time, I knew there was something different about it. It was just the energy. It didn't feel like a normal honeymoon phase. I remember on our first date, when we kissed, and also if he ever does stumble upon this video, like, hi. But on our first date when we kissed, we couldn't stop kissing. And I remember we were at a bar. We closed the bar, we're kissing, and this girl comes up to us and she says, hi, I just want to tell you, I'm so happy you two found each other.
Wow.
And we're looking at each other because we're like, we're not looking for anything serious, right? So we had about a month where we would just go to bars to kiss until closing time. And for anyone like Bubble Love and New York City together, amazing combination.
So much to
Um,
do, so much to explore, restaurants, clubs, bars, outside, wonderful.
yes. And then also something that was really interesting is that, when we progressed out of the bars and into each other's homes, he had said to me, he said, this is scary. Like he was getting these very deep feelings and he was saying this is kind of scary. And me, I'm still in the mode where even though I really, really like him, I'm saying, look, I don't want you to be scared. Why don't we just appreciate this moment for what it is? And so after that, for the remainder of the bubble love phase, it was beautiful. We went on the best dates. We experienced a lot of music together. So we saw like hip hop acts and rock acts and went to jazz concerts and saw art movies. And to this day, it's one of the happiest periods of my life. And here's the crazy thing, the bubble love phase ended on the day that we became an official couple, because we still weren't even an official couple
You're
yet, right?
dating, yeah, yeah.
And I not only was I very career focused, but I had gotten out of a very hard relationship prior to him. So I was so hell bent on not getting like a serious relationship at that time. But then I started falling for him. And here's where it's crazy. So the bubble love phase ends, but then we stayed in a relationship. So we were separated energetically and emotionally, but not physically. The physical separation didn't happen until a year and a half later. I'm sorry, no, not a year and a half later. It was almost 6 months of bubble love. The whole thing lasted a little under a year and a half. So it was like about a year later was when we physically separated. Um, but here's what's crazy about the day that the bubble love phase ended. I invited him to my friend's party. Her name's Laura. And Laura had a husband named Leandro. And a couple days before I invited him to the party, he said, "Oh, I met this really cool musician. I went over to his house. I laid down some tracks. He's an electronic musician." And for some reason, I'm like, "Oh, I just knew that he went to Leandro's house, Laura and Leandro's, right?" So I said, "Well, what is the person's name?" And he goes, "Oh, Leandro." And I said, "That's Laura's husband. That's where we're going." And I just remember being so, I just wrote it off as like a little bit of a coincidence. And so what happened was, for the upteenth time, someone was like, "So are you guys a couple?" And I remember I looked at him, I'm like, "Well, we haven't really discussed that yet." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, we're a couple." And then I think what happened, I think I had like a glass of wine. I was a little tipsy. I think I said, "I love you." And I think it scared him. And I noticed by the end of the night, his energy had changed. And he made a comment like, "I don't feel comfortable at parties where I don't know people. And I know it's not." And it was the first time that anything of like a conflict nature had come up. And I said, "Oh, no, no, that's totally normal." And I didn't realize that what we had for the previous time period was coming to an end, because the next time I saw him, he was different. So,
Withdrawn.
yes, just just withdrawn enough, but also just present enough. So, I didn't I was definitely disappointed. I could tell that the energy had changed, but also I was still very focused on my music career. So I thought, okay, maybe we're just gonna go back to like what our initial arrangement was. So we had this relationship that was, it was perfectly pleasant, don't get me wrong. It was, he would call me throughout the week, and then like he started disappearing on weekends, but then he would still refer to me as his girlfriend even though I didn't feel like his girlfriend all the time. And we weren't going on the same quality dates. It's like, we were just hanging out at his place or at my place, watching movies a lot. And he never said, "I love you." And we weren't as integrated in each other's lives in the same way. We never fought. It was perfectly pleasant. Um, but there was definitely, it wasn't the same vibe and it wasn't the same person. And I thought that maybe for the longest time, I thought, oh, maybe I was in one of those love bombing and breadcrumbing situations. And I accepted that as being what it was for many, many years. And it wasn't until 2023 that
Things
all the
change.
synchronicities and paranormal activity started.
So, I have heard before some people have a longer bubble phase, or a few cases, quite a few actually, where they met, they didn't realize, and then after many years, it's like bam, the awakening happens, you know? And some people are like, oh, that's how it's also for the DM actually, you know?
Okay.
Often when the DF has woken up and then the DM it's years later and then it hits them, bam. So let's talk about it. So you said then later, so during when did you start seeing the signs and confirmations and all the synchronicities?
So looking back, I do realize that I've seen synchronicities here and there. They didn't hit me over the head until 2023. Although I do want to take you back to 2015 for just a second, because this this
Yeah,
was the
tell
first
us that.
one.
And then also talk
But
about separation as well.
yeah, so well, when he broke up with me, he just said, "I'm not in love." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like I was sad. I was very sad. He fell in love with somebody else, moved across the country for her, and of course that hurt, but I accepted it. So I did go into a dark night of the soul, but I didn't equate it with the dark night of the soul because of him. I equated it with the dark night of the soul because I
Right.
felt like unlovable, like because my previous relationship before him married the next person, and then it's like, oh, here's another person. They're not in
Oh,
love with me, but they
mirrored
fell in
that.
love
Right.
with
He
her.
mirrored it. Didn't he? The wound, he mirrored it.
Because I also had that childhood. I was bullied. When I was in kindergarten, people would chase me around. They knew I was afraid of snakes, so they made clay snakes and chased me around. And I was told when I was growing up that I'd never get married, nobody would ever love me. And so I think I carried that with me, and I do think that I manifested that in my relationships. Um, but I didn't obsess and I didn't chase. I didn't look them up on social media at all for years. I was really good about that. It wasn't until 2023 that I had to look them up because I was like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, and I've heard that before where the awakening or the activation happens much later. Anyway, so he said he wasn't in love with you, he went off with someone else, but you didn't get so obsessed about it. You thought that you were, unlovable with your wounds that some people had given to you when you were young. But in 2015, something happened.
Yes. So I met someone, we started dating. He played the same instrument that my DM played. And when I went to his house for the first time, there was a flyer. And I'm going to give my DM a name. I'm going to give him a fake name. I'm going to call him David just for the storytelling aspect. So I'm at my new boyfriend's house and there's a flyer and it's the band that David plays in.
Oh God. And I find that the DMs always come to the party when you're trying to date another person.
Yeah. And so I was like, wow, that's weird. And I told the person that I was seeing at the time, I was like, you have my ex-boyfriend's flyer
On your
on your
table.
nightstand. And he was like, oh man, he plays with that band. That's so cool. Like he was impressed that I dated,
Mhm.
that bass players. I'll just say a bass player. I'm trying to like not give away his
Can you
identity.
imagine the flyers on the night table, which is right next to the bed, I'm assuming. So I've been on dates where my twin flame's ghost follows me around and scares the men I'm with, and they get tired or scared and go home. So
They actually feel the energy.
some of
Whoa.
them do, because I tend to date very spiritual people. So some
Okay.
of them, yeah,
That's wild. That
takes
is
them.
what. And so, and I'm still not thinking that it's this higher, twin flame thing. Not yet. But now here's where it gets weird. The guy I was dating, somehow we were out at a bar and we were watching the presidential elections. We ended up in the New York Times. So it's me and the new guy that I'm dating, right? There's a picture of us.
Okay.
My David David, the bass player,
He,
messages me and
he must
says,
have
"So
seen
I'm on the road, I'm on tour, and I'm reading the New York Times. And who do you think I happened to see?" So, and that was the first time that we had spoken. I think he tried to contact me once in 2008. He tried to get me to have dinner with him, even though he had a girlfriend, and he didn't tell me that he had a girlfriend, and I went off on him. I went off. But so that was the first time that I had spoken to him, or he messaged me in 2015. And I was like, wow, that's weird. But also, good to hear from him. I'm glad that he found some very real success in music, and I was very happy for him that that happened. So that was the first uh, major synchronistic sign.
and
And
it's
then
also
I,
like you saw him in a flyer, he's seen you on a paper. It's kind of similar.
yes. And the fact that it was the very band that I saw in the flyer, he was literally on the road, in either on the plane or the van or whatever he was in, writing to me from tour. So it was 2015. Um,
And how was your relationship then, so that you were with this person? Was it a good one, or was it there weird stuff with that too?
you know what? I think it was good enough. It was a short-term relationship. We ended up seeing each other for about 6 months.
Okay.
And that was also my last relationship. Like I've been completely single, single, ultra single since then.
And your
So,
DM's been single as always been with the other person since then?
oh, so he's no longer with that person. I don't know, I have a feeling that he's just one of these guys that always has a girl, or
They
maybe
do,
more than one.
they do mirror the DF eventually. So if you become celibate, they become celibate. If you become single, they become like that often. Anyway, so then what happened?
Okay, so there were a couple things that happened in 2021. Um, 2021 was the first time I felt the telepathy. And I was like, David, go away. Like I sent it back to him. So I was like, nope, 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 nope.
You were hearing the, or you were seeing, or what?
I could feel him thinking about me. And I was like, nope, go away. And then I also had this dream. I had this dream and I didn't think it was a twin flame dream until like years later when I went on the internet. And I had this dream about two snakes, which I've heard.
Yeah, Kundalini and yeah, union stuff. Yeah.
And one snake was bright green and one snake was bright blue, and their heads got chopped off. So I was, and I didn't equate the two together just yet. 2023, I remember the date, May 5th, 2023. I wake up
And you know
and
what's
the
interesting? May 5th is my mom's birthday. But anyway, carry on.
really
Synchronicity for you there.
okay, and I think that's meaningful because this whole time leading up to this interview, I was like, do I want to do this on camera? Do I want to be anonymous? Am I? And then like, no, just do it because I'm kind of coming out of the closet as a twin flame.
Yes, a lot.
It's a lot. So I don't think that's an accident that it's on your mom's
And
birthday.
you know what's interesting is that so I used to do a lot of LGBT stuff, right? Activism. And my mom came on a video once and she was a bit hesitant because we had a lesbian who emailed in and she was having a difficult time and my mom wanted to give support. And the video got millions of views everywhere. We had TV crew and everything. It was crazy from around the world in our house. But she was like umming and ahhing whether she should do it, and then she did it and it was positive.
Oh, good. Good. I love that though. I love that synchronicity is there. It's 2023. I wake up that day and it is like David's in the bedroom with me, not physically, but I can feel him. I can feel
Yeah.
it and I can feel that he wants to make his presence known. And It was cool. I liked it. And I guess I was ready for it. And this kick started about a 2 month period where I felt that he was with me energetically and telepathically, essentially like 24 hours a day for about 2 months. Um, for 2 months, I didn't even fart because I thought he was in the room with
But
me. When you're like on your best behavior when you're with the lover and you're like, I couldn't even like and it felt like I was going through the bubble love phase all over again, except for like physically I was by myself.
I mean, I find sometimes it's nice, but like there was times when I just really hated him, and then he'd be like in the bed with me, like energetically kissing me all night long. I'm like, fuck off, fuck off, and I wait, and then they just kiss away all the pain. But anyway, um, it's weird, it's strange. I used to call it the ghost, but it's their higher self.
Oh, yes. And there were times like I could feel him like getting in the bed. Um, Now prior to this, I got to jump back just a little bit. About 6 weeks before, I started seeing 333 everywhere. Every I'd just go outside and a car would come towards me with 333 on the license plate.
Hmm. Communication and also the Trinity.
Yes. And so when the telepathy started, I think about 2 or 3 days into it, I was like, okay, you know what? I've stayed off of his social media for years. I think it's time to just get online and see what he's up to. For some reason, I went to YouTube. I would normally go to like Facebook or Instagram, but I was like, you know what? He used to be in this band. Let me just look up I just wanted to see him. I go onto YouTube. There's a podcast that he went on. Not that many views on it, and it's 53 minutes long and 33 seconds. So it says 5333.
Hmm.
And I was like, whoa, okay, that's what the 333 is about. Then I had some old messages between us, and I looked at the messages in 2015. And the last one I sent to him at 3:33 p.m. in my time zone. So I'm like, okay, something's really going on here.
And
I
were you spiritual before you met him, or was this the first time you were getting spiritual stuff happen to you?
I've always been spiritual. I do think that there's been times where I've dipped in and out of it. Like there's been times in my life where I felt more spiritually connected than others. And usually the times where I'm not feeling as spiritually connected, it's usually because maybe I'm overworking myself or maybe I was drinking a little too much or partying a little too much or just focusing on things that didn't matter. But at this particular time in my life, we had met in New York City, but during the pandemic, I moved back to the suburbs of Chicago, to the town that I
Like,
grew up.
yeah.
And so I think because life was slowing down, um, I no longer had access to, nonstop events and parties, and it was more
Actions.
solitude. Yeah.
And I noticed you've got like the hieroglyphic wallpaper, is it in the background?
Oh, yeah. So this is my childhood wallpaper. Like I grew up with this.
It's so
It's
interesting. I studied Egyptian archaeology for my first degree, and then also when I met my DM the first time, I saw the past life in Egypt. So I don't know, Atlantis and all sorts. So I don't know if you have a connection to that.
No, it came with the house like 50 years ago. So I'm in my childhood bedroom. And I think that had a lot to do with why all of a sudden I was open to receiving all this telepathic communication was my life slowed down and there was more space.
It's so interesting you say that because people ask the question always, does the GM see the numbers and the signs, synchronicities, and all that kind of stuff? They see them, but they don't register them because they are distracted, they are avoiding, they're running, they're busy. But when they slow down or the universe smacks them in the head, then they see it.
And um and so I think that that was probably happening over the years. but that I wasn't noticing it because I was in New York and I was playing music and I had a million friends and a million, like on any given
Yeah.
day. You know, when
Yeah.
I was growing up, I was never invited to the party, but the second I got to New York City, I was always invited to the party. So, and I think because New York's so busy, um,
Yeah.
that those synchronicities were probably hitting me over the head, but I didn't see them.
Yeah. And it wasn't the right time as well. If it was, the universe would have smacked you straight in the head and shown. So anyway, now was the time. And then what happened?
Okay, so I listened to the podcast, and what's crazy is that, we're in the year 2023. I haven't physically seen him since like 15 years prior. But in the podcast, he was actually talking about a lot of things that occurred around the time we were dating. Um, he didn't mention me, but
Mm.
he did mention the person that he fell in love with, that, he moved across the country to be with her. And I had always wondered, like, well, what does she have that I don't have, right? And he spoke about her in a lot of very loving detail. And I'm like, oh, she sounds cool. Wait, yeah, she had her stuff together in ways that I didn't, that I can honestly say. Um, and I kind of learned a lot from that aspect of it. I learned about when they broke up. I learned that he, I knew that he was in this band and I knew that he was doing well. I didn't know how famous the band was because it was very famous in other countries. So he spent a lot of time just touring the world. And then one day he got fired. So I'm guessing he was probably partying. I'm just going to take a guess. But then he talked about what he was doing in present day. So by the end of the podcast, I basically knew every single thing that had happened to him
Since that time.
from the time that we broke up to present day. And like I even knew, like by the end of the podcast, I knew where he worked, I knew his work schedule, I knew where he moved to. And I'm like, was it the universe wanting me to see this? Was it his higher self like tapping me on the shoulder and saying, hey, like energetically catching up with me? I don't know. And I did reach out to him during that time period, but I kept it very brief because there was nothing. He was very nice, but he wasn't really moving towards me. Like he wasn't saying like, "Hi, how are you? What have you been up to?" He didn't ask me any questions. He just said, "Oh, it's good to hear from you." And so I kept it brief, and because he felt so present, I thought for sure he was going to reach out to me, and he never did. So that's when I started learning the difference between 3D and 5D.
So yeah, because it needs to catch up, right? And the 5D will haunt you until you do your work. So you said there was a song, right, that came through at this time, or because you're seeing all the synchronicities and the numbers and the messages. So and then you talk about the telepathy as well. But would you like to
Yes.
sing us the
So
song or read the song or whatever?
I'll tell you about this. I don't know if I want to sing it. But it's called Mind Game 333. Um, and it talks about, walking down the streets where we used to gallivant and stuff, and seeing his name on the license plate. And, is it just an epiphany? Like, am I taking things that are not related to each other and making meaning where meaning doesn't exist? Or is it a mind game? I
Is
don't
there a
talk about the,
manifestation?
yeah. So, I'll sing you a little bit.
You
So it's
know,
like,
I have thought about that as well. Like, is it because you're thinking about them so much? But then it goes way beyond and it goes crazy because you thought about people in the past before and it's never been that way. And only the other I think it's this week or last week because my twin blocked me recently, and all I kept seeing was sorry baby, or I love you, you are my one everywhere. Like I'm like, you cannot make this shit up.
yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But so I'll sing you a little teeny tiny bit. So it's like, Billboard says 333 doesn't mean it's meant to be. Is it a mind game? I think I felt you on the astral plane. So it's like, I felt that. these experiences are probably more widely felt than we know, which is something that I've learned from going on YouTube, that this is happening to a lot of people.
You mean a
So
lot
I
of
feel
different things or a lot of people in general?
well, mostly twin flames, but I do think that paranormal experiences and 5D experiences, I think they can extend to beyond twin flames.
Yeah, to people who are awakened or aware or connected, maybe. Yeah.
And I think that it deserves more of a conversational place in mainstream society. Like I can't stand that on Netflix and Amazon Prime, those two twin flame documentaries, why aren't they talking about the synchronicities and the numbers? Why to me, that's the important stuff. And I think that
Maybe
mainstream
because they
society,
maybe because they are not twin flames.
yes, that's true.
Fantasized it as just a relationship of sorts, but there's nothing about the core wounds and the horror of separation and what you're trying to ascend with your soul family. There's none of the depth is lacking.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to talk to you about Sarasota, if
What
that's
is
okay.
what is Sarasota?
Okay, so while I was going through that 2 month telepathy thing, my friend called me and said, "Hey, can you come babysit my cats? I'll fly you out to Sarasota." It was like a 3 month thing, right? And I was still in that telepathic chapter of my life. And I was like, sure. So I go to Sarasota. And at this point, the whole twin flame thing is still very new to me. I'm still learning about it, right? My friend's apartment, first of all, there's a big statue 2 blocks away of the infinity symbol. And at this point, I don't know that the infinity symbol is a twin flame symbol at all. Um,
Before you go forward, how did you understand it was a twin flame? You researched it or it came up?
well, I decided I made a very secret podcast that I didn't tell anybody about. That's just for me. Um, and I wanted to make some artwork. So I was looking up like twin flame symbols. And then all of a sudden I saw the infinity symbol. So I saw the actual statue first. But then as I was researching twin flames more, then the infinity symbol came up. So I saw that. I saw a literal black snake one day just like jumped in front of me in my path because we were in Sarasota and there's snakes there. I've been listening to other twin flame interviews, and a couple other people have mentioned seeing a snake in your path is part of
I
a
saw a
sign.
white snake.
You saw a white snake?
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of the experiences that twin flames and people who are on an ascension path have reported. So that happened. There was 333 everywhere I looked, it said 333. And and I'm flying across the country. The city that he lives in, there was a building right there that had the name of the city that he lived in. Oh, this is all walking distance from my friend's place. And then there was I walked a couple more blocks and it said David's Bar. It was just like you can't make it up. I was fortunate. I had a good friend named Lydia that I was able to confide in. And I feel for people who don't have that one person. Step by step, I could call her up. I could send her photos of all the signs and synchronicities. And she was such an incredible sounding board. Like she didn't think I was crazy. She was there for every part of the journey. Um, and then it kind of one day I was on the couch with the cat and I felt David's hand like touch my heart. And then shortly after that, the telepathy started winding down
Hmm.
and eventually subsided. And I don't feel him at all now. But for about two
Can
months.
come in and out. It depends, but it can come in and out. But in the beginning, it's intense. It is a lot. Okay. So, did you have dreams? Were there any dreams?
There were some dreams, and it's interesting because I had never really dreamt about him. Like over the years prior, I hadn't dreamt about him, but around the beginning phases of the telepathy, there was one night where I just cried a lot, and I went to bed, and all of a sudden he was just like standing there over my bed calling my name, and I woke up and he disappeared. And then there would also be times where if I was taking a nap, he'd just be there. Not a lot happened in the dreams. You know, sometimes there'd be someone with him, or he'd be in another room. So he'd be there, but not talking to me. Um, we might have had like a couple of conversations, but there wasn't a lot of messages in the dreams, but they were very condensed into that time period when I was feeling the very heavy telepathy.
Okay. So, let's talk about the shared core wounds. So, you've reached out to him, and he's like not really responding as you thought. You're still in separation. And then did you start getting all the ego death, the dark nights, the activation of the wounds? Like, what was happening?
So I feel like the activation of the wounds had happened a lot prior, before. Like my dark night of the soul kind of came in and out over the
Mm,
period of several years. And it was interesting because when I did have to look at the fact that 5D communication and 3D communication are they're different worlds, it felt like I was losing him all over again. So, you know, the first time the breakup was hard, but I accepted it. I did a lot of work to let him go. I, I have had I've had issues around dating and relationships just because I did grow up thinking that I was defective, or, that somehow other people got to fall in love, but I didn't, right? So that is something that has been part of my life and part of my healing. So fortunately, I didn't go back into the dark night of the soul, but when I was first feeling this telepathy, I was certain that he was coming back. And I honestly thought that he was going to jump on a plane and show up at my door. That's how strong the connection was. But then when I saw that things were very different in, the 3D real, like I don't know if I want to say the real world, because I also think the 5D is kind of the real world too. Um,
you feel like disappointed, don't you?
yeah, because I 100% thought he was coming back. And so it was almost like I had to get over him
Again,
all over again. And that was about 2 years ago.
you said
Um,
that you did healing, or you heal. What did you do to? How did you heal?
well, coming back to my childhood home, I had to look at my childhood
Oh,
issues
okay.
all over again. Um, and I mean, I studied so many twin flame channels and stories and um,
What gave you the? How did you figure out this was a twin flame connection? Like, did it someone tell you? Did it come up on
oh,
Google?
so so back when I was seeing 333 and I discovered the podcast and I was feeling the telepathy because I was like, oh, he's coming back. We're reuniting. So I remember I looked up 333 reunion, and then all the twin flame stuff came up. And I had known about twin flames. I had watched twin flame videos before, but never
Yeah.
in a million years thinking that I was one.
There's a
And
difference, isn't there, from reading it to going through it?
oh, yeah. And I mean, I went and if I get interested on a topic, I go
Same.
all in. whatever the topic is. So everything from, you know, I think that like everybody kind of starts at New World All Star. Like that was my starting point, and then I found your channel. Um, but I even found channels like Twin Flame Rehab that are a little bit smaller. Um,
And some of the channels I find like are just after your money, or they kind of feed into your fears and anxieties, and that's terrible because that's bad karma, to mess with the twin flame as well. Like it's not. I got used a lot too, but anyway.
mhm. I do agree with that. I think that on one hand, I do think I did hire a twin flame coach for one session, and I'm really glad that I did. But I picked someone who was more into learning. Their focus was detachment.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like getting your twin flame back.
Mm.
And I remember when I first discovered, we could talk about New World All Star. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course we can. Yeah.
I remember when I first found his channel, I was like, oh my God, this is great. All I have to do is pay like $70 a month and take this course, then I could get my twin flame back. This is incredible. I didn't take the course. But what I did was I made sure to research twin flames more from different angles
Yeah.
and hear it from different perspectives. Um, the one thing that makes me sad, though, there seems to be a growing number of people who think that the connection is demonic, and I don't think it's demonic. I don't want to invalidate their experience and say, no, you're wrong, because their experience is their experience. But for me, it's cool. Even if I never see my twin flame ever again, it's been awesome. Like,
I mean, I understand where they're coming from if they're with karmics or toxic people, and twin flames can be quite toxic. Mine definitely was. And after he got triggered, he looked demonic. He was surrounded by negative entities. You could see it, and now he's no longer. That's the difference. They come out of it. As you heal, they heal. As you go towards the light, they eventually empty themselves of darkness, and they also come.
yeah.
Difference.
I guess I'm lucky, even though my twin flame wasn't perfect, there were times that he did piss me off a lot. Um, I feel like the darker side of it wasn't as bad as maybe some other people have experienced.
I mean, some DMs, for instance, have been tortured, or gone through so much. So they have experienced a lot. And then when they meet you and you're so amazing that it brings out more of their darkness. And
Mm,
all that has to come out of their lineage as well and whatever's going on. So I've had some clients horrific. Yeah,
yeah.
horrific. Anyways, so healing wise, you said you were looking at different things and you had a coach, but did you do any inner child shadow work or like anything like
A little bit. I started, well, I looked a lot at the relationship that I had with David, right? And I realized, oh, wow, there were times where I didn't have boundaries or I was afraid to speak up and say, hey, what's going on? Right. And I decided that I was going to start incorporating healthier boundaries and speaking up in my current day relationships. So now at work, if something goes awry, I speak up, but I learned how to do it in a healthy way. I also do it with my family. Like if they're yelling at each other, I'm just like, why are you yelling? What is there to yell about? And then we end up communicating in a much healthier way. So I guess I've taken responsibility for maybe where I went wrong in the relationship and have taken the things that I wish I would have done in that relationship, and I'm focusing it into the relationships that I have today because that's really all we can do. We can't
yeah.
change the past.
I like what you said because I got really good and tactful at being neutral and saying the truth from my perspective without that emotional reaction. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's important. So let's talk about spiritual abilities. intuition, powers. I don't know if you like a lot of DFs, they gain all these gifts.
So I've always been a little bit psychic. And I do feel that it's heightened. I don't want to get too psychic though. So I do feel that I have like a little bit of a cap on it. There's only so much psychic that I'm willing to be. But I do get intuition, about maybe when someone might call me, or I get an intuition when it comes to David. I do like to just check up on him once in a while just to make sure that he's happy and that he's okay. And sometimes I will, oh, this was crazy. So this is wild. David had a friend that he lived with. Oh, I also realized we'd been living parallel lives over the years, like living in the same places, but at different times. Our music careers ended at the same time. So at one point, David actually moved to Chicago, right? And went on tour with one of his best friends, which is strange. So I don't know why, but the suburb that I live in, nothing happens here. This is a boring suburb, nothing. But I was like, I want to go on the library calendar and see if there's any events at the library. It
Hmm.
turned out that David's friend that he went on tour with played my library the night before. But it was like, and it was kind of like how I was like, oh, let me check him out on YouTube. Like something seems to always lead me to just see how he's doing or see something that's connected to him. But I have a lot of moments like that, either with him or with other people, or just maybe I might have a flash of an event that's going to happen. So yes, I do have those abilities, but I
So
want to
yeah,
be, I don't want to
and
be
you know
too.
that they get revealed over time. So my third eye opened just after doing my plant medicine in December, where I could see people and see their trauma. I didn't have that ability before. I wish I had because I would have dated so many crazy people. But it's like because I was always thinking, what are my gifts? What are my gifts? And then this time when I've done the medicine, I've come back and I've become a bit psychic as well. Like I I predicted the day and time my sister would give birth and what was going to happen. Like so many things just coming. So it's interesting. I think it reveals over time.
Yeah.
Um, so have you received any guidance, spirit guides, or higher realm stuff about your connection? Like, do you believe union will happen? Do you believe in a mission with the DM? Like any paranormal mystical? You've explained quite a lot, but focusing on him specifically, do you feel that there is a future with you too?
At the moment, I don't see a future with him, and that's okay. I'm really into like I'd like to meet a soulmate because I've never had a soulmate. Like I've had karmics, and I've had the twin flame thing. I would love to see what the soulmate thing is about. Um, Also, I know that he has some things that he's very passionate about that he focuses on where he's at, and I have the things I'm passionate about where I'm at. His lifestyle that he's currently living is not for me. It's just not what I look for in a partner. It's actually the polar opposite.
Not stable at the moment. But they do stabilize eventually. They do. But yeah, soulmates are nice. But for me, since I've been activated, it's really hard for me to do soulmates. But I've had some good ones come in who've been like, they give you the whole boyfriend treatment. They royal treatment. They cook for you, clean for you, do everything for you. Um, yeah, nice. It can be really nice. Okay, so what about Kundalini? You talked about your Kundalini, and what about anything you want to talk about the intimacy or the energy of intimacy? Because some DFs say that, the sexual energy just takes over, it comes out in the blue. For me, it doesn't happen. Like I've had it in a dream, maybe once or twice, but otherwise, like I get on with my daily life. Like I don't get all of a sudden bursts of sexual energy stopping me from living.
So during that 2 month telepathy period, it was nonstop. It was the sexual, it was almost like a little inconvenient, And what was interesting was that I was also getting a lot of like looks from men. Like I think they could almost tell. Like I would go to the grocery store and like,
Yeah.
I had all of a sudden I was getting this attention that I don't always get. Um, it has like, it's normalized and it's stabilized. And also I've been celibate a really long time. Um, and I like celibacy. I like it a lot. So at the moment, it's nothing crazy, but during that 2 month period, it was like a scratch. It was like an itch that I couldn't scratch, no matter how many times I scratched it, kind of thing. It was just like nonstop. Um,
Because the DMs are very, very sexual.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and one thing that I did learn about David was that in the podcast he made a comment. He said that when he toured the world, he was the only single guy in the band and he had very nice hotel rooms, which I think means he probably got laid a lot on the road. But
But your
yeah.
intimacy with your twin flame was different than your soulmate, was it? For me, it was very spiritual, actually, very divine, very pure, innocent.
Yes. So at this point, I've never had a soulmate. I've only had karmics leading up to him. Um, yeah, there was something about it. It it just felt like body, mind, and soul, during that bubble love phase. There was
It,
just something energetically about it that just felt very pure. It almost, I don't want to say that it felt like a drug, but
it does.
it felt like a drug. Um, and then that when we were in that longer period of time where we kind of energetically separated, it was still, the intimacy was still very nice. It was still very pleasant and fun and positive, but it wasn't what it had been during that.
Yeah, because he shut off a little bit. Okay, yeah, wonderful. So, is there anything else that you want to tell us about, you know, well, let's talk about your understanding of intimacy and divine love. So now that you've kind of been activated to this thing, because you talked about wanting to experience a soulmate, which would be a little bit, well, compared to a karmic, it's a lot nicer. But for me, like twin flame is the ultimate divine experience, especially once it's healed and aligned. But what is your understanding now of love, intimacy, sacredness?
So, I mean, I think intimacy is so sacred and it it does make me sad that we live in a world where it's not so sacred in the day to day. Um, which I
Everywhere.
can't, I can't change that for other people, but I wish there was more of an understanding of that. I wish that Hollywood and the music industry promotes so much casual sex.
Instagram, you go on Instagram and you see breasts and you see penises, you see everything, and I can't believe it. They don't block it.
Yeah.
And everyone's got an OnlyFans now. Everyone's selling their body, stripping everywhere. It's distorted.
And I don't know, if someone wants to, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's your thing, get your bag. Um, I'm sad that it's so ingrained into mainstream culture. I think that that type of thing, if you're going to go after it, it should be very underground. You should have to work very hard to get it. Um, I feel sad that children are growing up thinking that this is
Mm.
normal, thinking that this is like a career path. Um,
This is what love is, being
yeah,
abused by people and smacked or whatever,
and I wish that, you know, the sacred nature of intimacy, I wish that was the norm. I wish that was what was being pushed, without being like puritanical about it or being like, you're bad if you get laid, not that, but
How good it feels. It feels amazing to be cherished, to be valued and respected. and to feel safe to explore your sexuality. For me, I don't feel safe with majority, if not all people, apart from my twin flame. He's the only man I've ever felt safe with,
Okay. Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
and it's I am sad at how commodified and mainstream. I really hope, honestly, I hope someone sues Instagram for billions of dollars and that Instagram loses because the thing that really makes me angry is the fact that children have access to this. I see adult entertainers will make content where like everyday people are walking in the background of their videos. I don't understand why it's allowed. So I hope that something happens where
We
I'm
live
just hoping
in a very
it's like,
fucked up world, you see. It's a lot of distortions, and
yeah.
it's just animalistic because people are disconnected.
Hmm.
That's what it is from their divinity, from source, from alignment, and they're just in trauma. Trauma, 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 trauma. But it
That
will
is
change.
true.
It will change. What advice would you like to give to the divine feminines out there?
Sure. Keep a journal,
Okay.
write down all the synchronicities. Something I did for myself, I made a secret podcast. Well, that I'm never gonna promote it. No one's gonna find it unless they do. But keep a journal of everything that's happened. I would say this. I remember when I was first becoming aware of the journey, and some of the twin flame coaches would say, it's not about the other person, it's about you. And I didn't understand that at first. And now I get it. I'm like, oh, wow, it really was about me this whole time. Um, Maybe look at your patterns, look at things that are not good for you. So I started cutting out people, places, and things that were not my best interest. Like when I, once the telepathy thing started, I became very clear about things. Um, if people put you down, get them out of, just get rid of them. If people disrespect you, they gotta go. Um, don't drink too much. Try not to drink at all if you can, but there's just things now that I realize, like if someone says, "Hey, I want to go to a bar and, get drunk," like, no, I'm not going. There's nothing there for me. And also, I would say keep an open mind. Like if you hear people's stories, different twin flame stories seem to be taking people down to different roads.
Mhm.
And I would say hear everybody out. I hear twin flame stories that don't align with me, and I don't think that I don't see it the same way, but also I never want to invalidate anyone's experience.
Mhm.
Um, Take what resonates with you, drop the rest, and don't let anyone invalidate your experience. And then also, I think it's a good idea to listen to people who've been on that journey for a long time. A lot of people are saying that when you get past the mud and you get past the dark night of the soul, and you finally stop longing for the person 24/7 and you do bring it back to yourself, really good things happen. So,
No, but you have to get to that point. And I know quite a few people in union, and I know someone who's a good friend now, and she's been with her twin for ages. In the beginning, all she kept saying to me is surrender, 0 point, and leave it to God. And that's all she kept saying. And then I just kept phoning it and phoning it. And it only clicked in so much long, like so many years later. Like you're not ready for it until you're ready for it.
also, you just reminded me when I was in Sarasota, there was a sign near the apartment that said absolute surrender. And
Yeah,
like,
hard. It's trust.
it's also something I would say if you're going through like the obsessive thoughts or rehashing things, um, sometimes you just have to let your mind go there. Like if you're
Yeah,
like, no, no, I can't think about my twin flame. No, just think about them
get it out.
intentionally
I
you
also
know?
say if you want to get drunk intentionally, but take a friend who's going to take care of you because in the beginning stages, you might just want to go crazy.
True. Yeah, true. I don't, what was funny was that when I got into that telepathic stage, all of a sudden I could not touch alcohol. I couldn't touch it
That's
for
the
those
problem.
2 months. I can have a drink now, I can have a glass of wine now, but for some reason I couldn't touch alcohol. I couldn't gossip. A lot of like the things that I'll watch, like, I like to watch a little gossipy stuff sometimes. But during that 2 month telepathic stage where everything felt very pure, I just couldn't engage in it. Um, yeah, don't be afraid to cut off things that are toxic. Yeah, I cut off a 40-year friendship because the person just kept putting me down, kept making jokes, belittling me. And like finally I was just, I just blocked
It takes
them.
a lot. I cut someone off recently too, and it was hard, but necessary. And then your DM will mirror that
Yeah.
because you cannot hold on to stuff that's not serving you. Wonderful. I really appreciate having a chat. I feel always feels like especially with you, it's about like just a general friendly, back and forth. And it will help people because right now on the journey you're at surrender, you said, and you're feeling a lot lighter and better, right?
So much better. And I'm still open-minded. Like if David calls me up one day, I'm not turning that conversation down. So like anything could happen. Um, but it does when you get to the point where you're not so focused on them, it's amazing how much better it gets.
Yeah, and it will keep. I'm just I think back to it like how where I am now to where I was 2.5 years ago, and then imagine what's going to be at 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. I mean, it's going to be bloody amazing. So good.
It's it's wild. And you can't get off the journey, so you might as well enjoy it. It's,
Buckle up. Right.
it's,
Thank you so much, Colette. It's been an
thank
honor.